Hi and welcome back to the season finale of the Canary Room. Coming up on the show today, we're on the road, not once, not twice, but 3 times as we hit the show scene across the UK. We've got Bird of the Week, a beautiful, beautiful little green Norwich. We've got favourite part for everybody, of course, it's those pesky little Redpoles in the Redpole diaries. The Canary Room's top tips for this episode is preparing birds for the show bench. We'll finish off with question time. As always, sit back and enjoy the show. So we've been out and about throughout October and early November. We've been filming, we've been on the road. Let's take a look first of all when myself and a good friend of mine, Graham Holsworth, judged the Fife Fancy Federation show, the National, at the Stafford Showground. Let's take a look. Okay, so we've got the first. You can see it's quite a bleak day as we were up very, very early in the morning. Young Graham there walking to the showground just gives you some kind of indication of the size and scale. This isn't the Fife section that we can see here, but this is exhibitors from all over the country boxing their birds. And then, as I like to do when I judge any show, I've gone round the staging, I've had a really, really good look, and I've seen the birds that I like. We've got Adam Kendall coming into shot and young Mick Goran here as well. 2 likely lads if ever there were. I was impressed with some of the variegated birds that I saw there. I like to look at them on the bench, as I've said. I like to see them settle naturally before they're moved up in the judging panel. Not making a note of cage numbers, but just, you know, looking for any kind of standout birds so when they come up, you get a sense from this at the size and scale of the exhibition hall. And the total number of volume birds there is massive. Here's some of the clears that took my eye. There were some beautiful clears on show. A clear yellow is a sight to behold, although everybody knows I'm a green man myself. So the clears were looking lovely. This is the class that I judged here, so they're on the bench. I've videoed them just as I'm about to judge them. I've shot here some of the winners, some of the special winners, before all the rosettes have gone on. And then you can see the best champion Fife. It was a self-blue yellow hen. It's done well subsequently as well. It's owned by Clark and Gillett Partnership. Lovely little bird, really dainty little Fife. And then as we go across, there's the clear bird. There's the best opposite sex. And there's the best novice bird on the day. Nice little variegated. As we know, I'm a fan of reds. I saw this little bird, a little red black, which I thought was something that was quite attractive. And we scroll down and we can see another one here as well. So they're really, really nice birds. Who knows, they may end up in the Canary Room in the future. Borders I've always been a fan of. So here were the top borders on show. Very difficult to film because they're up against the window. And that was Stafford. Good day out. Really enjoyed meeting up with lots of people. Too early for me to show, and I was judging it this year. So that was the Stafford trip. More on the road a little bit later on in the show. So, as we can see in the Fife cages behind me, there's a lot of single birds in single cages. There's still some twos together. There's a couple of hens in there. There's a cock and a hen in there. There's a cock and a hen in there. That bird there is in a single cage, single cage, single cage, single cage. We're getting down now to the sort of the final numbers of birds that we'll retain. Some of the surplus birds in the Canary Room, certainly from the Fifes, have already left the room. There's 1 or 2 more to go. So I've got a couple to deliver at some of the shows I'm judging. So my next judging engagement is down in North Wales. So a couple of birds will go there. And then there'll be 1 or 2 surpluses, and I've got people coming to the Canary Room later at the end of November when I'm really done for the show season. Birds are looking in good shape. This time of the year it's always quite challenging. The molt's ended, you can see, these are cleaned on the weekend. There's a dust to them, so there's a lot of dust in the atmosphere. I do have an air purifier in the canary room. The windows stay open all of the time, day and night, and we've had a couple of frosts which has helped to finish the birds off. Most of the birds from the show team have been out. There's one or two that haven't yet. We'll have a little bit more chat about that later on. Let's just have a little look at the cages, and then we'll head to the Redpole diaries. So it's certainly my favourite part of the show, or one of them at least. It's the Redpole diaries. You can see that the poles behind us have started to pick up a colour lovely now. I've stopped colour feeding them now. It's early November. You can see that they've got you can tell the over-year cocks because they've got a ready chest to them now, as well as the poll on top of the head. And you can start to see the hens, the over-year hens at least, because they don't carry that colour. They're easy to sex, over-year Redpoles. I find it very difficult to sex them, but I'm not the only person who finds it difficult to sex them as unflighted birds. So what I will probably do is some DNA feather testing, so I'll pull feathers and send them off, and that's guaranteed to sex them. One of the other things that people will do is they'll pull some of the chest feathers out of the birds and then continue to feed them, colour feed them, to see whether they come back red. And obviously if they do, then the chances are that it's a cock. I don't think I'll do that. I'll DNA test them. As I look behind me now, all the birds are the other way. I'm going to give them some of our little favourites in a minute. Some of the mealworms. I will be thinning the Redpoles down, so we know we brought a number in. I'll be thinning them down, about 5 pairs will leave the canary room. I will keep the Isabels. There's an Isabel just in shot behind me there, so I think they're a really, really beautiful bird. I like that mutation. So I'm very tempted to keep them. There's still some remodelling to do in the shed. That will be done probably after the show season. Most weekends are taken up at the moment by going travelling around the country, either judging or showing. These are and remain delightful little birds. We've obviously got the goldfinches as well. There's another goldfinch cock coming in, so there'll be a couple of pairs of goldfinches in the canary room as we move forward. And there'll also more than likely be a pair of siskins too. So keeping the British connection alive. I'm going to, as I said before, I'm going to remodel, so just behind where Dan's filming, I'm going to put a couple of flights in and then 4 double breeders, and I'll try and cage breed most of the Redpoles, and I'll keep the goldfinches in flight. I'm going to we love these in the canary room, bought some in the week. I'm not giving them all the time now. I want these birds most of them are out of in fact all of them are now out of their nest feather. So they've gone through the molt. I'll stick a bath in a minute. It's always lovely to watch them bathe. But I'm giving these a couple of times a week, no more. I don't want them in absolute peak condition. I want to use these in the run up to the breeding season, which is still 4 or 5 months away. But I'll use these to help condition the birds as we move forward. So just a couple of times a week, I'm just putting just a finger draw in. There's around 10 to 15 birds in these 7-foot flight cages for the time being. So, each of them will get a little bit. So I'll pop these in now, we'll have a look at them munching, and then we'll do what I love to do, which is we'll put the baths on and have a little look at them dip. I'm getting suitably soaked by the Redpoles. We'll go around the room again now. The razzers we can see in the cage behind me here, they're starting to molt out quite nicely. Looks like there's a couple of yellow hens in there. It looks like there's a buff hen in there. I've got a couple of buff hens. Looks like there's maybe a couple of yellow cocks as well. I won't retain too many razzers, probably just 2 hens and maybe a cock for next year. Similarly with the reds, we'll check them out in a minute. Just behind my shoulder there. Some of the reds have already left the shed. There's a really nice pair. I really like this pair behind me. It's an intensive hen and a non-intensive cock. So I'll retain them. The Norwich, the vast majority of the Norwich birds, I'm actually going to move on. So I've taken a decision that with the Redpoles, the Norwich with their inability to feed the young really, and the Razzers, I've got 3 breeds of Canary that are beautiful, absolutely beautiful, but with the Norwich they are stunning birds, and you know, may retain one for mulling purposes, but the actual stud itself is taking up cage room, and cage room's at premium in the Canary room. There's 60 odd cages at the moment. That will go up to 70 when we put the new cage configuration in, but that's an awful lot of cages. So what I'm going to do is move the Norwich stud on, so somebody will pick up a very nice stud of birds. Let's have a little look at the Razzers, and we'll have a little look at the Reds, and then we'll go back on the road. The second on the road journey was an awfully early start. It was the first show that I did this year. It was over in Cleveland, a 300-mile trip, 4:30 in the morning. Here's me doing my normal car shot, introducing there in the car park of a college up in Cleveland. Oh, it's another early start. We've been up since 4:30 this morning. It's 8:15. The birds are in. First show for me. It's Cleveland, Border and Fife, so 300-mile round trip. Not expecting anything today. Birds have had a little bit of show training, but today will do them some good. Needed to get them out really. 900 odd Fifes in, I think, today, so if I've got any in the tickets, I'll be absolutely thrilled. Catch up with you later on. The show has gone from strength to strength in Cleveland. There was over 900 Fifes and a very, very competitive border section. In fact, it's gone so big they've had to move into another hall within the complex. You get a sense from this shot of the volume of birds that are there. Most of the top champions in the country were there. The lads from Scotland were down. What I loved about this show, and what I thought was a real credit to the committee at Cleveland, is this next shot. What I've done here is there was a canteen area, and in the canteen area you could watch the judging. They set up a CCTV of the judging. I thought that was using technology to advance the hobby, and I was really impressed. The next couple of shots are of the judges judging the clear specials, the various different clear specials. You know, it's always a deliberation. Difficult when there's 4 judges, obviously, because, you know, there's no even number. There's no odd number. So, you know, if two agree and 2 disagree, it's always tricky. Here's judging the final best champions. What I was impressed with the judges on the day here was they gave the birds time to settle. They moved them around, they brought them back up. They weren't too quick to disregard a bird for the colour special. A little bit more now of judging the champion colour specials. And what we end up here with is the final best birds. Little variegators on the end, lovely bird, really lovely bird. A clear, then I think that's a heavily variegated yellow hen. One of my birds did very well there. The self-green buff hen, a ticked to 10% bird. Blue, so they did a separate special for self blue. The variegated cinnamon, that beat my bird into second place. And then the best bird in show, here's all the birds now with their rosettes on at Cleveland. That's really, really well presented, look nice, not overdone with rosettes, just, you could see the bird, you could see the rosette, just how it should be done. So we pan across and see all of the winners there. A great day, a great show. There's the best champion and the best in show, a variegated white owned by Green and Stilly. A lovely, lovely bird. As I scroll along then onto the next bit of footage, you just get the chance to see the novice birds and see how they did. Strong novice entry there, always encouraging to see a good novice entry on the bench. So that was Cleveland. We've got our final trip on the road a little bit later in the show. So we've seen the Razzers, we've seen the Reds, we've seen the Redpoles. It's time for the Canary Room top tips. So, today's top tip is preparing birds for the show bench. So we've looked at some show training, we've looked at show selection. What we haven't covered yet on the Canary Room is how you prepare birds and prepare your show cages for the show season. Now, if you could look outside the Canary Room, in fact, if you just see to my right, you'll see that there's a load of big coffin-shaped boxes which have got our show cages in. There's another 18 outside, because otherwise if they were in here, we wouldn't be able to fit Dan as well. Show season, one of my favourite parts of the year. What's really, really important, things that you need to consider are, A, you're only showing birds that have fit. So you've done your selection, you've said, right, that's the bird that I want to do, that's the team that I want to put out. You enter the bird, but you've got to make sure, first and foremost, the bird is fit before it goes to the show. Absolutely paramount. But I'm going to tell you now my top tips of how I prepare the show team. So it starts about 2 weeks before the show. 2 weeks before the show, I'm going to jump out of camera quickly. 2 weeks before the show schedules will have arrived. Here's an example of the North of England, which is going to be my next show. The show schedules arrive. You check the classification. Now, the vast majority of Specialist 5 shows now have the same classification, thankfully. You've got an entry form. So this is my entry form for the next show. You put the class number down and a description of entry of the birds, fill it all in, pop a check in, pop a self-addressed envelope in, pop that off to the show secretary, and then your cage labels, and in some instances your lifting card should arrive. They normally arrive 4 or 5 days before the show. So on the Monday of the show, the first thing, or the Monday before the show, the first thing I do is I put the baths on. So my wire baths are up here. I'll put a bath on the show team and I'll let them, early in the morning, I'll let them bathe in lukewarm water. Now, what I'll add into the water is a special top tip from the Canary Room. I'll go and get it now. Is this. It's tea tree oil. Now, I'll add a little bit of a splash in the bath through the sprayer that I use. So, I'll pop the bath on. That will be full. Birds will jump in. They'll bathe themselves. I won't handle them. They'll bathe themselves. And then the baths will come off before I go into work. And birds will get a chance to plume. And make sure when they've been bathed that they've only got normal water on. So I'm giving them a Rego stim once a week at the moment. But they've only got water on. So that's on a Monday. They'll get a bath. On a Tuesday before the show, they'll get taken out of the show cage and they'll get a light spray. Now, again, there's only a couple of drops of tea tree that go into this. It's got a really nice smell to it. It helps put a shine on the birds. It helps with any parasites or anything else that are on there. So it's really, really good. You only need the smallest number of drops. So that's on a Tuesday. Also on a Tuesday, before I've sprayed the birds, what I'll do is I'll catch them up and I'll check for any stray feathers. Now the stray feathers are normally around the back of the neck, and in a moment I'll catch a bird up and we'll see those stray feathers and I'll show you how we remove them. In fact, let's do that now. So, in my hand I've got a variegated buff cock, which has taken to biting me. You can see on the back of its neck it's got some stray feathers. So it's got some long pieces of feather, which is spoiling the overall look of the bird. Now, you can't trim fifes. You can't cut their feather. I've seen people cut tails before, and it's a ridiculous thing to do. It spoils the thing of the birds. But with this is spoiling the back skull. So all we do is we get a pair of tweezers. If we hold the bird gently so as not to stress it, we get those little extra hairs. They're almost like hairs, as opposed to sort of feather. We get a little grip of them. And we'll gently just pull them out. And you can see there that that's away. So we work across the back of this bird, we'd pull those away, and once we'd completed with that, we'd pop the bird back in its cage, and then we'd run him into a normal, just a training cage, and we'd give them a heavy spray. So I'll pop him back for now. So a heavy spray, so the bird is drenched, absolutely soaked. So I don't have any cage litter in the bottom of the cage on that day. Just, it's an empty training cage. The bird gets a really, really, really good soak. I'll show you what I do right now. So here he is. We want him up on the perches ideally. So this is on the Tuesday before a show. This is just from a garden centre. It's got the solution in, and we are literally we make sure we spray his feet, and we're literally going to soak the bird. So you can see he's absolutely wet through, certainly on the back. We'll try and turn him round. We don't want to stress him out. We'll try and spray the front as well. We've got him there. We're making sure we've got the feet and everything else. So you can see on the Tuesday before the show, this bird is absolutely soaking, and he's just sprayed right in my glasses. So we'll pop him back now. On a Wednesday before the show, we do our final health check on the birds. So we'll look at the birds that we've entered the show. If I see these two behind me, both of these birds have been shown. There's a ticked yellow cock and a variegated cinnamon yellow hen. You can see the cock's singing. He's been singing lustfully, so he's in good health. He's got a little bit of dirt on him. So on a Wednesday before the show, we do two things. The first thing that we do, I'll just catch this bird up. I'm not afraid to handle the birds. I'm not afraid to catch them up. On the Wednesday before the show, we just give the birds a little light spray. You can see there's natural oil on the bird there. You can see that the droplets of water are sitting on top of the feather. What you want by the Sunday or the Saturday of the show is you want the bird's natural oils to be on the feathers. So he's just had a light spray. He'll preen himself naturally now. We'll pop him back. So with a light spray on the Wednesday. What we'll also do is clean the perches. So that'll be the final spray for the birds. So if I take the perch out, we'll get a knife or a blade, and we'll just scrape off any fouling on the cage, on the perch rather. So that's done, and that bird then won't be sprayed until the following week of the show. One of the other things that we'll do on a Wednesday is we'll check the birds, and if they have got muck on the feet and mess on the feet, you don't want them to be spoilt. We'll use a cotton bud, which we'll soak just like that, and we'd catch the bird up optimally before we sprayed it, and we'd just wipe the base of its feet. So if I catch this bird up now, I'll catch this one, turn it over. I mean, fortunately its feet are clean, but you just run that across the nails, across the feet. If there's anything there that's mucky, and then you'd pop him away. So on the Thursday before a show, as a general rule, I'd leave the birds well alone. Always keeping an eye out for fitness of them, but wouldn't generally handle them. I'd leave them there. On the Thursday of a show, what I also like to do is prepare the show cages. So the labels have arrived. After every show, I take the cages and I'll clean them out. The label is affixed here, just underneath the perch. I'll put 3 or 4 egg food drawers, so the little round egg food drawers here. These of oat husking. What I do is I spray the bottom of the cage first. I'll wash the cage out, I'll rinse it with Dettol. I'll spray the bottom of the cage first, just so the oat husks hold and stay. I'll put 4 of these in, I'll put the cage labels on, and then I'll put these back into the show boxes. So that's done on a Thursday. So generally, if I can take a little bit of time off work, or I've got a little bit of flexibility, I can do these on a Thursday so they're all done, so I'm not worrying around on a Saturday trying to get them done. So that's on a Thursday. On a Friday before the show, well, there's only one thing to do, and that is to feed the birds with a Craker tonic mix. I'll go out of shot again, I'll pick some up and I'll show you the Craker tonic. It's available from Heath's online. It's a fantastic mix. I've used it for many years. It's got lots of natural seed in. It gives the birds a nice little boost for me. It might be psychosomatic, but it works for me. So I'll go and pick some up now and we'll take a closer look at that. Particularly expensive, this seed. I don't know if we can see it, but you can see it's got a nice smell to it. It's a really fine conditioning seed. I've got finger draws in all of the cages. Just one finger draw. Don't want to overfeed. We'll pop that in and you'll see the birds basically devour that. The one thing that I will also do with the birds, and again it's one of my top tips, not so much now as the season's sort of, the show season's in full swing, but certainly at the beginning of the show season, toothbrush is fantastic, where you've got pins in heads. So you don't want to overbrush with a toothbrush because the pins will come, they'll have bald spots on the birds, but just a light little brush over the birds, sort of round the top of the head, round the eyes, and that will help break some of the pins down. As I say, don't overbrush. So Friday, we've given them the Craker tonic mix, and then we're moving then in to show preparation. Now, you've seen, I don't mind handling my birds. Once you've got all of the cage numbers in, you've got all of the individual labels on all of your individual cages, I like to bench my birds the night before. because I find it helps them settle, and if they're settled, they do better on the bench. So I like to bench my birds the night before. I'm happy to catch my birds up, so I'm happy to put my hands in the cage and pick the birds up. I know some people don't touch the birds. I make sure that my hands are dry, that they're free from grease, they're free from perspiration, and that way, you know, I don't think it really affects the birds. I'll do a double check on the schedule, because what's really important, particularly in some of the classes where you might not be normally familiar with birds, what's really important is that you enter the right bird in the right class. I've seen it on so many occasions. It happened at the National earlier this year. Champion fancier had obviously been in the shed early on in the morning. They put 3 buffs in a class of 3 yellows. So it's, you know, it's a mistake that's easy to make. I almost did it at the Northwest, where I put a variegated buff in where it should have been a variegated yellow. So you double check against your classification. The other thing that I like to do on Saturday, just before I've benched the birds, is just give them some apple. So I'll cut up the apple just into thin slices. This is a clean knife. Just into tiny little slices. So I'll pop the apple in there and in all the cages of the show team, and it just gives them a little bit of extra energy. You know, showing will take things out of the birds. It will, you know, you want to cause as least stress as possible. So I find, you know, the old adage, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I find that it works equally as well with the fifes. So that's how I prepare the birds. Optimally, I'll box them up on a Saturday. I'll drive to the show hall. I'll bench them nice and early. I'll put the waters on them, and I keep my fingers crossed. And they're my top tips to preparing your birds for the show. So it's our third and final on the road for this episode. We took a trip to Northwest, my own show. So here we are, benched the birds the night before. I handed over the reins to the show after last year's show, so strange feeling for me, to be honest, not to be involved in the organising it, although I have to say that was tinged with an awful large amount of relief. So here I am in the car. Hi, it's Saturday night, or Saturday early evening, just coming up to, or just past 6 o'clock. The birds are loaded. We are on our way to Northwest. Mixed emotions for me this year. I'm not running the show, so relief mainly. I wish the committee all the very best with it. So supporting the show with the birds. We've got a team of 24 in. We'll see how they get on tomorrow. I was speechless, which for me and those of you who know me well was quite a phenomenon, in that when I got into the show hall, the little blue hen who's in the cage here behind me was on the top table. She was covered in rosettes, as we can see here. She was best allied to white, she was best champion, and she was best Fife Canary in show. To have had a best in show so early in the season is phenomenal, and to have won it at the Northwest was a very special moment for me. That wasn't all. I had a very, very good day. The variegated cinnamon yellow hen who's in the cage next to her won second best cinnamon. So the cinnamon special still eludes us, but she was second best cinnamon. We can see her here in her cage. And then we can see all of the champion winners are variegated. The clear of Gerald Spencer's, the variegators of Adam and Sharon Kendall's. There's a couple that are camera shy, that I couldn't get up on their perches. So there's a green, a heavily variegated, there's the self green there. And the cinnamon that won, which was Henry Cooper's bird. I believe Henry's an absolute gentleman. The best novice was Jimmy Roberts from Wales. As I say, there's a few of the birds that are a little bit camera shy as we go down the Norwich winners there. It's a buff cinnamon But I can assure you there are birds in these cages. There's a heavily variegated there and then an allied on the end. Another little shot of my winning hen. She looked stunning on the day. I was absolutely delighted. She will go out again. She won't go out now until the north of England in a few weeks' time from today, but she will go out. She's a little beauty. Let's have a little look at her stock cages and then let's take a closer look at her rosettes. So this week's bird of the week is a little heavily variegated buff Norwich hen. It'd have been great if this bird was a yellow, because it would have been really good to mule with, but it could still be good to mule with. Nice bird, first time in any kind of cage other than a flight cage. It's got a good strong head on it. I like this bird. If I retain any Norwich, this will probably be the one, because it's a darker bird, just to go with the muling. Nice bird though, nice and sort of, it's got something about it. As an unflighted bird as well. So there's a fair amount of size to it, which is good. Let's have a closer look and then we'll go around the room one more time. For the final time in this season, we'll have a look in the cages, the fifes. Really want to focus on this heavily variegated buff cock in cage number 9. It hasn't been shown yet. It will get a run out at Merseyside Border and Fife in a week or so's time. I'll be judging in North Wales, so I'll take the birds the night before. Only a small team, I'll probably only put a dozen in. And that dozen, it'll be there to support the show mainly. But that dozen will be a couple of birds, and I'll show you them now, who haven't been out yet, who could do with going onto the show bench before we hit the really big shows. So north of England, Midland, there'll be over 1,000 birds at each of them. There'll be over 1,000 birds at North Wales, but I'm judging there this year. I like this bird. It's come on leaps and bounds, and it was a little bit too early, the Northwest show at the weekend, to show this bird. It could do as a couple of the birds could with a hard frost, and you'll hear fanciers talk about that. A hard frost will just finish the bird's feather off, so they'll tighten up and they'll look good. So we could do with a hard frost on this bird just to finish him off, but he is a lovely specimen. He can be a little bit lazy with one wing, which is a concern, because if he does that when he's being judged, he'll be nowhere. But actually, when he's in a show cage, he is a sight to behold. A very nice bird. So high hopes on that. Keep an eye on our YouTube channel to see how he gets on over the next few weeks. The next bird that I want to show you is a heavily variegated, another heavily variegated, but it's a yellow this time. So I'm going to step over this way. Dan will pan across. Follow me. Moving. Action shot. He's in this cage here. Again, he's taken a while to finish, and there's something about birds in stock cages, and two things can happen, and they're the opposites of each other. Sometimes you can look at a bird in a stock cage and think it's an absolute world beater, and you put it in a training cage or a show cage and it goes to pieces. It looks rubbish. And it's good that you can see a bird that looks good, but if you're breeding them to show, you want them to look good in show cages. Sometimes you can see a bird in a stock cage that doesn't look very good, and then when you put it in the show cage, it looks stunning. And that was the case with the little blue hen here, who was best in show for me last weekend. This bird, fortunately, I think does both. So he looks good in the stock cage and he looks good in the show cage. He hasn't been out yet, so he'll get a run at Merseyside too. When he runs out, first time, that's just about getting the birds used to the experience of showing. And that's what I'd say to any of you who watch the show, who've got an interest in showing birds. Get your birds out as often as you can. I took a trip, it was a 300-mile trip, round trip to up over to Cleveland. Many of the top fanciers were there, as they were at the Northwest. It was the first time my birds had been out. I put 21 birds in. A number of them didn't card, didn't get in the tickets at all. A number of them did, but it was the first time, and you know, they were better for the experience. The following week, a number of that team, plus a few extras, went out again. And at Northwest, I won the heavily variegated yellow hen class. So I beat the bird that was best heavily variegated the previous week. I was second in the green yellow hen class. I was second in the green yellow cock class, third in the heavily variegated buff cock class. I won the heavily variegated allied to white class. You know, I won a cinnamon class. The cinnamon hen in there was second best cinnamon. One of my clear buff hens was in the tickets. You know, the vast majority of the team carded. Now, they were up against the same birds in the main as the previous week. And accepted there were different judges, but they were better for having had a week showing. And that's what I would say to you. You know, get your birds out, get them on the show bench and see how they get on. So that's it for Around the Room for this series. Coming up next, it's question time. So it's the final part of the show. It's question time. Today's question comes in from Steve Brown. Thanks very much, Steve. Steve has emailed the show at info@thecanaryroom.tv. Steve says, hi, I have a question for your question time. You've mentioned in earlier episodes pedigree of birds who don't necessarily look the part, however you know from their pedigree that they carry the correct bloodline. How do you use these in a breeding program in a way to not set your line back, but to enhance it? So it's a brilliant question, Steve, and I'll do my best to answer that for you. Pedigree of birds is, you know, documented by parentage and understanding. Sometimes visual qualities won't come out in one bird, and sometimes if you've got 3 or 4 birds from the same parents, the visual qualities won't be evident in every bird. So there's 3 dark yellow hens that I've bred this year. There's a heavily variegated yellow hen that was a class winner at the Northwest. There's a self-green yellow hen that was in the cards in a very big class up in Cleveland, and there's another self-green yellow hen that has only been out once and is yet to ticket, and they are not a million miles apart in terms of quality, although they're, you know, the heavily variegated are arguably the better of the 3. The other 2 birds aren't poor birds by any stretch of the imagination, and because they're not poor birds, they'll be used as part of the breeding program for next year. So you can't eliminate any risk, Steve. You know, you can sometimes pair a bird that is of not fantastic quality and it won't produce good birds for you. If I move over this part of the shed, I've got a really good example that I can probably show you. So over this part of the shed, there's a pair of cinnamons. In this cage, I don't know if Dan can pick them up, but we've got a cinnamon buff hen in the foreground. And in the background, there's a cinnamon, heavily variegated cinnamon yellow cock. Now I've shown the cock and he's done well on the bench. I haven't shown the hen because she's not of show quality. But when I look at the pedigree of these birds and I look at the siblings, I know that this pair will breed up. Now, I may not retain them because I have the father of both of these birds in each of these cages here. This bird was a best in show. This bird won a class of 60 variegated yellow cocks at the Midlands. The hen that was bred in this was a special winner at the north of England. So the yellow cock has got special winners on both sides of its family. Now visually, it's not the best heavily variegated yellow cock that I've ever bred, but it's not a bad bird. The hen visually looks a bit thick in the neck. That's its father. Its mother was a clear buff hen, and its brothers and sisters are in this cage here. Now you can see the visual quality of those birds, but you can't see it here. But when you talk about the pedigree of these birds, and you look at what this bird has bred with a number of different hens, so there's another bird in here that's bred out of that cock bird, there's 2 birds in there that are bred out of it, there's another hen in there that are bred out of it, there's a hen down there that's bred out of it. This bird, there's a bird there that's bred. There's other birds in the shed that I've kept that are bred. So when you look at what else that bird has bred and what's produced, the pedigree in essence is what's behind it. These birds will breed birds of better visual quality than themselves. The only guarantee of that, Steve, is to see and tune in next year and see what they bred. But it is about understanding the quality of the birds behind, and that's the essence of pedigree. It's about understanding what's behind your birds. Steve, thanks for contacting the show. I hope that went some way to answering your question. Thanks very much. So that's it. That's the season finale for the Canary Room. After almost 40 episodes, we're drawing the curtain down on the show in this format. We will be back on YouTube. We'll stay on Facebook, and we may have a little surprise for you in the new year. Check us out on the YouTube channel for weekly updates on what's going on in the Canary Room. Thanks everybody for your support. Thanks for all your contact to the show. It's really been appreciated. I hope you've enjoyed the series as much as we've enjoyed making it. Until next time, take care. Hi and welcome to the season finale of the Canary Room. Coming up on the show today, we'll meet people we haven't met before. We'll dance, we'll sing, we'll shed a tear as we wave goodbye to another season of the Canary Room.